Philadelphia, are you ready?
They said, are you ready?
This is Brotherly Love Wrestling Podcast, your first stop for everything professional wrestling. So sit back and enjoy wrestling talk at its finest with your hosts, Larry Hall and Joe Corrado.
Welcome to Brotherly Love Wrestling, where we have joining us today, Billie Starkz. Billie, we want to welcome you to the show. I will say this, our youngest guest we've ever had, but I will not say age. But Billie, we want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today. Basically, what you're going to give us today is a perspective on wrestling that we probably haven't had before on our show. I mean, being young, being a wrestler, being a female, I mean, you kind of hit the criteria of a lot of, like, the minority experiences and minority, what's the word I'm looking for, Larry? Viewpoint, there you go, that's a good one. For wrestling and whatnot. So, I mean, you said you've been wrestling for 2 years, and where have you been so far in this 2 years? Like, where are the promotions that you've worked? What do you call home? Where do you call home, wrestling wise?
I've worked for Black Label Pro. I've also worked for Girl Fight Wrestling, Paradigm Pro, St. Louis Anarchy, and over the last few years, I've been able to call all of those home. Grindhouse Wrestling is where I was trained, and when I first had my first few matches, that's where I had them.
So the names that you just rallied off of companies, they're not like smaller promotions. Those are some of like the bigger promotions in all of independent wrestling. And to say that you call them home at being such a young age, like, how are you looked at in the locker rooms? How do you feel going into those promotions with such prestige behind them?
I feel like it's a great opportunity that I've been given at such a young age, and as a wrestler in general, since I am so young in the business, a lot of people aren't given the opportunities I've been given, but due to the connection I've made with people, I've been given opportunities others would not have been given. And the way I feel like I'm viewed in the locker room, I'm given a safe environment and a way to learn for a lot of people.
Now, going into these promotions and whatnot, I'm trying to get my question out. If you have a question.
I got one if you do.
Go ahead.
Okay, good. So, all right, the main thing that a lot of people, I'm sure, ask you, being when you say you're young and you appear young, how do you get into wrestling as young as you did, and what drew you to wrestling? Because a lot of women growing up, they had some people to look up to, but not like real big time. So what got you into it?
Honestly, my stepdad introduced me into wrestling, and I fell in love with it from the first sight. It was like that one thing where I was like, oh, that's all I've wanted to do, and that's all I've ever wanted to do. When people ask me what I wanted to be when I grow up, my 3 responses was a wrestler, an ice cream truck driver, and a CSI investigator. And it's all from, like, just family experiences. Like, me and my dad would always watch Criminal Minds and Law and Order on the couch, or we would watch WWE. And then we started going to independent shows, and that grew my love more for wrestling. And for the longest time, I wanted to be an ice cream truck driver, because when I was little, whenever I went to my grandparents' house, my grandma would always have ice cream for me and all of my cousins. So it was always like, oh, let's go. So it was just like ice cream brought me happiness, so I wanted to bring that to other people. But I guess wrestling lets me do that in a different form.
I feel like you could probably, at least with the wrestling, I feel like you could add because it is professional wrestling, you can at least be an ice cream truck driver wrestler or a CSI agent wrestler. I mean, you can always tie the two together. It says the most theatrical sport of all time.
You are correct. I could do it all.
You could. I mean, and you'd be pretty over as a babyface being an ice cream truck driver if you brought real ice cream to the shows. I'm just going to throw that out there.
It'd be so much fun, but imagine trying to get ice cream show to show.
Yes.
I mean, there is that problem of ice cream melting, but I mean, that's why we have coolers, right? They do it at baseball games. You could do it at a wrestling show.
Hey, you got me there.
So, who have been the notable people that you've learned from? Like, I know being like when you're young, you're kind of like a sponge. You absorb stuff from everyone. Who has been some of the main factors in your wrestling?
With my training, I've learned a lot from Rudo LaMotta and Ronnie Roberts, and I've also got further training up in Indy from Trip Cassidy and Jonathan Wolf, and through like matches and just developing and getting a chance to wrestle so many great wrestlers. I also got to wrestle Kylie Ray, who helped me a bunch, and then I got to wrestle Jake something, and all of these stars who really helped me understand, okay, how can I develop myself and get to the level where they are and make myself look bigger than life.
All right, so it's kind of a tougher question, but being young, how do you slow yourself down so you try not to do everything so quickly? Like, how do you, like, because sometimes your main instinct is to, oh, I got to this point, now I just want to rush. Like, how do you keep yourself, like, always learning and not rushing through things?
Honestly, I think it's a mindset and your support system. Like, my mom and dad have always been really supportive of what I've done, but they've always taught me to stay humble and take my time and enjoy what I'm doing because they know I love this, but they also know I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I want to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep me at the point where it's like, we're letting you enjoy this. We're wanting you to have fun, but you have to take it for what you have right now. Like everything with Corona and stuff right now, I would love to be the schedule that I was having where I had a show every single weekend. Right now, it's, okay, let me have a show or two. Okay, we're going to skip a week or two or three. Then we have another show again. And that's just how our schedule is slowed down, but we still have to be grateful for what we have.
Yeah, with the Corona, how did it feel getting into the ring and actually having your first match? Was your first match back with fans in attendance, or was it a no-fan show?
My first match back there was fans. I wrestled Cole Radrick, who I got to wrestle one time before that, and we had a blast, and I think that was his third match back, and I was just excited to have fun. Yeah, and the show actually did a good job of everybody was wearing masks. I'm pretty sure all the temperatures were checked at door. So I thought it was a great way to start my wrestling career back after everything that's happened the past few months.
Now, was there first match back jitters, or did you feel like you got into the flow right away, or did it take a little bit of time?
So I've talked about this before with like my family, that like I have to be in the wrestling mindset, and being out of it for so long, it took me a second to be like, okay, what do I do? Like I was in the ring training, I still felt good, like I was in good shape, I could still move and do everything. It was like, how do I bring out this emotion that's going to get reaction from people? It's that mindset that I was kind of missing at the time. And I think it's just from doing wrestling so often every single weekend, it just became second nature for me. And when it all went on pause, it took me a second to be like, okay, wait, we actually have to think about this. It's not going to just be natural.
Yeah, it's kind of like you forgot how people would react to you.
Yes.
In whatever you were doing. Now, you said your first match back was against Cole Radrick, and you wrestled Jake something before, which means that you are in intergender wrestling, which seems to be a hot button topic and when you talk to wrestling fans, especially about independent wrestling, because that's where it happens in independent wrestling, what can you speak on of how you view intergender wrestling?
I view intergender wrestling as just another match and an opportunity to wrestle someone new. I feel like a lot of people say it's not realistic, but I believe that it's a completely different view on wrestling, and I really do believe that it doesn't matter who you're in the ring with. If it's a wrestler and another wrestler, it's a match that can happen.
It's always seemed weird to me that would be the time that people would go to it's too realistic and it couldn't happen, when wrestling is supposed to be something that stretches your imagination far, far from anything else in any other sport. I mean, it's more of a movie type setting where you see a smaller person against a larger person, the David versus Goliath, where in any normal standpoint, the Goliath would destroy David. I mean, it's always in the wrestling business and the movie business that where you see the underdog story. Now, is that the role that you mainly play when wrestling, is kind of like the underdog role?
I honestly do feel like it's my opponent and who I'm going with, but most of the time, yes.
Now, is that a role that you could adapt and become comfortable with playing as the underdog role, or do you not want to get saddled with that mindset about you? Or is it something that you could help?
I feel like you should be able to adapt to any scenario and any type of role in a movie as a wrestler, because you are an actor, you're a performer. And if you're an actor that can only do main character roles, well, at some point there's going to be a point where there runs out of main character roles to play. So I look at it as I am a performer, I am a wrestler, and I need to be able to fit whatever mold people need me to be and be able to be myself.
Now, when you're wrestling, is it more of a babyface role? Is it more of a fan favorite?
Most of the time, I am the good guy, white meat baby face.
Now, if you do get to play the heel, quote unquote, or you do get to play the bad guy, how do you feel performing in that role? Do you feel like it's funner, there's more to do in that role?
I honestly feel like a heel fits more of my personality. A lot of people who know me in my daily life, they're like, yeah, you're a brat. You would be fine as a heel. But a lot of times in the wrestling community, they're like, you're such a sweetheart. I can never see you as a bad person.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, is that when you're watching wrestling, now I take it do you watch weekly wrestling? Do you watch WWE, AEW, all the bigger promotions?
If I'm being honest, I really don't watch a lot of wrestling because I'm
Okay.
in the ring so much and around wrestling so much. It's sometimes in my daily life, I need that disconnect of, okay, I'm still a person sometimes, and I
Mhm.
need that time to think, oh, I'm not Billie Starkz right now. I'm a person living my daily life, and I just want to watch cartoons.
I mean, I feel like that could be beneficial too, because if you're not watching it and you're just learning it, you don't get caught up in where you want to be. You kind of stay in the now, so to speak, and you stay kind of grounded, and you keep your goals focused. And you don't get caught up in what everyone else is doing.
I completely agree with that. And I also believe like watching other performing or like other TV shows. Like I was playing Mortal Kombat, if I can speak.
That's all
And
right. I know
I
the feeling.
actually came up with some moves like that. And it's like I believe that watching other content that's just not wrestling can like spark your inspiration for different wrestling ideas. Like watching movies is like, oh, I can put a structure of a match in this way. Like if it starts off with a sad beginning, it's like, oh, that can be like my match. It starts off with a sad beginning and then there's a victory at the end.
Well, that's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, that would make sense that you use everyday life as inspiration instead of – it keeps things fresh. I mean, if you're looking back at old wrestling, you're kind of playing more off of that. Or if you're watching live wrestling, you're not really getting ideas that are natural. You're getting other ideas that people have had. So by keeping your mind kind of freed and doing other things, you're still focusing on wrestling, but you're keeping a different mindset about it.
Yes.
So after all the promotion that you did already wrestle for, are there any like real top indie promotions that you haven't wrestled for yet that you want to mark off the list and definitely wrestle for in the coming months or year?
I would honestly love an opportunity to wrestle at Beyond Wrestling. I've gotten a chance to finally go and see one of their shows in Atlantic City, and I fell in love with their atmosphere, and I've watched a few of their shows on IWTV, and I was like, I love the vibe they have, and I would love to be a part of that. So that's one of my goals, is to be a part of Beyond Wrestling.
Is that because because I got the same feeling when I watched. I wasn't always like I wasn't always like a diehard Beyond fan. I kind of more recently over the past couple of years have gotten into it. It kind of has like a family feel to it, where everyone that's working there, it kind of feels like a tight knit group of people. Is that kind of what drew you to it?
It's that energy that they give off every show is like everybody wants to be there and they want to put on the best show possible. And I love that feeling of when I go to Black Label, they want to put on the best show possible. When I go to St. Louis Anarchy, they're trying their best to make the best of everything they have.
So Beyond Wrestling, that's pretty attainable. You've made it known that that was one place that you wanted to work, and have there been any talks otherwise?
There has been talk of me going there. I've posted about it a few times. Beyond has replied to me. Just haven't worked out the schedule yet for where it works out. But we'll see what happens in the future.
They are also known for like their talent search. They're kind of like up and coming tournaments and whatnot, where they'll highlight people that haven't really been highlighted on that stage before. Like we have a couple of people that are around here, like Matt Mikowski. He was working his way in the indies and got on Beyond and kind of got the views and the eyes on him. So it's kind of like one of those promotions that doesn't just play the same hits over and over again. They'll bring in other people and people that they haven't used before and try to get their name out there as well. It's kind of like a people helping people type promotion.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
So I did want to bring up, not many people know this, and I've seen people ask about it a lot, and I think you're probably one of the best people to ask about this. Why don't you describe to people the Big Starkz Brand?
The Big Starkz Brand was started by my father, Mouse's Wrestling Adventures, or Mouse, whatever you want to call him. And it was something to make me smile. I was having a real hard time with Corona and everything that was going on at the time. And he was like, what can I do to just make her happy for even if it's just for a minute? And he got into the Big Baller Brand of, all of that jazz. And he was like, I'm the LeVar Ball of wrestling. This is Melo, and I would kill anybody for Melo. And everybody went off with it from there. And then someone in the comments of his post made that logo, and we're like, okay, we're gonna see where this goes. And it's just blown up from there. We've had people join the family, and then hashtag never lost since then.
Now, does it surprise you that it took off like that? I mean, it was kind of something that started off as something small and kind of like just for fun, that it actually blew up. I mean, nothing surprises me in wrestling, so it doesn't really surprise. But does it surprise you that it kind of took off like that, being on the inside of it?
Honestly, like a lot of things that have end up working for me, like my nickname as Space Jesus. It was a joke that everybody fell in love with, so I was like, oh, I'll keep it. And the BSB thing, it was like, oh, this was just a thing to pop me in the moment, and everybody was like, oh, this is amazing, so we kept it. I honestly feel like it's just a like chance of whatever it is in the moment. If people are drawn to it, they'll be like, oh, this is cool, keep it. So it's honestly just a game of chance with whatever blows up and whatever doesn't.
I mean, when you get the right people behind it and the right people to go into it, I mean, it kind of it makes it it's a group mentality. It makes you want to be a part of that group that looks like they're having fun. It looks like they're doing something for a purpose and whatnot. And the more people you bring into that, and the higher you get in that, I mean, it just makes more people want to join, I think.
I completely agree.
Mm-hmm. Which is pretty cool to see. I mean, you don't really get those stories all the time. Like, we just started something for fun, and look, it actually turned into something that's a brand now, and you're selling merch.
So, one more question before we let you go. If you could pull one name that would not be off limits and you could have a match with, who would that person be? Male or female?
Or one of each.
Or one of each. That helps.
Let's be inclusive.
Okay, so if I had to choose a female, I would say Millie McKenzie.
Okay.
She was a wrestler I fell in love with when I was just on YouTube one day, and my dad kept yelling at me. He was like, so at the time I was very like, I am just a wrestler. I don't care about character. And he was like, you need to. And he forced me to watch Kylie Ray. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And he goes, you wouldn't like her if she didn't smile. And I was like, oh, you're right. And then I watched Millie McKenzie, and she had her personality. And I was like, I love these people. I want to wrestle these people. And I want to be a person that people want to wrestle and have that thing for me. And I was like, that was one of those moments where I was like, oh, this makes sense. I will start doing better. And then male I would love to wrestle is Bastard Cassidy, Ben Cassidy. He's very new in the business, if I can speak. But he's one of those people who I got to see him train, and I love everything he does in the ring. Even though every time I tell him I want to wrestle him, he's like, I will murder you, Bill.
Is that kind of like a big brother thing?
Basically, we're like family, and he's one of those friends who, outside of wrestling, we love each other, but in wrestling, he'll tell me he hates me. And every time I post something about him, I posted a picture of a ginger cat, and I said, Bastard Cat City, and he immediately just put thumbs down under the post. He was like, why do you do this?
Well, if anything, that's a good way to get heat with him, and maybe you will have that match eventually. How was his last time I saw him was against Filthy Tom Lawler at Black Label Pro, and he seemed to have had a little bit of a leg injury. Is he getting better from that?
Yeah, he was at a seminar with me, and he tweaked his knee, and it was just sore and sore and sore. And he was really worried about his match with Tom Lawler, but he kept telling everybody he was going to do it anyways. And he went to the doctors. He believes everything's going to be fine, but he still has to take care of himself like we all do. We all hurt ourselves sometimes and don't take that break when we need to. But he's taking that break. He's going to make sure he's okay.
No, it's interesting. Now that you brought that up, I mean, sometimes we say it's the last question, but sometimes other questions do generate through conversation. Now, how do you deal with injury, and how does that affect your everyday life and whatnot? Being younger, you should be able to recoup a little bit quicker than some of the people that have been doing it for years and years. Like, now, how do you feel like that affects you, the soreness and whatnot?
I've had times when I've gone to school like completely black and blue. One of my teachers actually had that moment of, is everything okay? Is there something going on that I need to know about? And this was before, like, I explained I was a wrestler. This is the very beginning of my freshman year, and I didn't, like, explain to a lot of people that I was a professional wrestler, and that's what I was doing on the weekends. And she was one of the teachers, like, is everything okay? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm a professional wrestler. I get beat up. I'm okay.
For a
So,
living.
like, I would walk in, and my entire forearm was bruised. I think I went to go hit someone. I hit the turnbuckle, and, like, usually I'm fine, but, like, for some reason, when I hit it, I bruised my whole forearm. And I went into school, and my teacher looked at me and was like, And
You do a lot
then
of
there
guidance
was this,
counselor visits.
no, I actually never had to be sent to the guidance counselor. That's one of my proud achievements. I've only had like the weird conversations with my teachers.
Now,
I had
what do
one
they?
time where
I was gonna say, what do
I
they
had like
say?
one time
Oh,
where oh, go ahead. Go
no, I
ahead.
keep cutting you off. Go ahead. You're our guest.
I I had a thing that happened at training where a guy was practicing a new finisher on me, and I was supposed to take a face bump, and I didn't think he was going to get me over all the way because he was flipping me. So I went to go catch myself and landed right on my knee, and my knee was swollen and like black and blue and like yellow for like weeks. And I went into class and like I literally, my leg was so sore and I couldn't like function. So I had to like prop it up and like ice it during class. And my teachers are like, "Do you need to go home? Are you gonna be okay throughout the day?" And I was like, "I'm fine."
Like when the first time you said it's okay, I'm a wrestler. What was the teacher's response? I feel like they'd be like, oh, well, now everything makes sense now.
That's usually how it goes. They're like, "Oh, okay." And then in school, like a lot of times, my PE teacher, when I would miss like Fridays to go to a wrestling show, we had to make up exercise time. So she would say like, "Send me a video of you exercising." So I got to send her my matches, and she counted that as exercise. I was like, "This is really cool." And then like a lot of times the people's reaction is, "Oh, that's really cool. I want to come to the show. Oh, can I watch your matches?" And in my career options class, my teacher all the time would be like, "Oh, did you have a match this weekend? Do you have it? Can we play it on the computer while we work?" Like she's one of those people who was always like fascinated by it and was trying to show it off more than I was.
So now since you're in high demand, you got to use that as leverage and be like, this will only get played for extra credit. You have the power here. You
My
just have to
teacher
use
one time saw the video of me. I think it was when I kicked Ace Perry in the face and gave him the bridging suplex that really blew up. I think this was at St. Louis Anarchy, and I showed it to my teacher, and she goes, "I promise I will never fail you because I don't want to have this interaction where you end up just tossing me across the room."
That's insane. Like, I wish I would have known someone that was a professional wrestler back in school. Now I think of it, like, do you have a lot of people that'll come up to you and be like, "Yo, do they like actually go to your shows if they're in the area?"
So this was a really weird experience for me. So this is my brand new high school. I didn't know anybody. I had like 2 friends who I went to middle school with, and I stayed after school for a theater play, and I'm helping with the costumes and everything, and the assistant director comes down and looks at me and goes, "Billy," and I'm so confused because that's not my like in school name. That's not my real life. And I was like, huh? Like really confused. And like a bunch of like the seniors and juniors were going to shows and knew me as Billy. And I was just like, wait a minute, this is so weird. Like I've had that happen when I was at like different shows that I've never worked for, but like being in school and like sitting there like I'm like, is this really happening? Is this a thing? Like, this is what people have to go through?
Not only the lucky ones.
And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool that people know who I am, but at the same time, this is weird because now you have to figure out who the, like, real life me is, not the wrestler me.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can't live your gimmick forever, right?
Correct.
Unless you're Ric Flair.
Woo!
I think that's the perfect time to end this on that, whatever that woo was.
Trust me, I make a bunch of weird noises and everybody judges me. Like I say boof, murp, and like all of that all the time. And my mom just looks at me and she's like, "This is normal."
So you're a walking cartoon. All right, Billy, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we get to see you soon coming up in your next shows. Do you have anything coming up?
I have Paradigm at the end of the month and Girl Fight's returning show back at the end of the month, so I'm really excited for that. I believe it's the 25th and 26th. It's the Friday and Saturday.
Are they going to
Or
be
Saturday, Sunday. I can't remember.
Are they going to be on independent wrestling TV?
I believe that Paradigm will be live. Girl Fight, I believe, is still on High Spots.
Okay.
Great.
Perfect. Now we know where to see them. All right. We want to thank you again. And hopefully, once you're on the show once, there's always an open invitation to come back. So hopefully down the line, we can have you back on.
Sounds good. I would love to be back.
Thanks so much.
No problem. Bye, guys. Be safe.
Yeah, bye.